Item number 14 is an ordinance authorizing a cooperative agreement with the Texas General Land Office and Alamo Endowment Board regarding development of a master plan for the Alamo Historic District and the Alamo Complex located in Council District 1.
Good morning. I'm very excited to be here to announce a cooperative agreement that we have negotiated with the Texas General Land Office, the Alamo Endowment Board, and the City of San Antonio. And before I start my presentation, I would like to recognize a few individuals who are here with us today. We have Lou Mormon and Jean Powell, who are with the Alamo Endowment Board. We have Hector Valle and Jeff Gordon with the General Land Office, and Becky Denon, who's the Executive Director of the Alamo. This effort and this cooperative agreement would not be possible without this partnership that we've created and we will have for the next couple of years. The cooperative agreement that we entered into really speaks to several issues. One, it talks about why we're doing this, and it's about the partnership, and it's about preserving and protecting the Alamo and the surrounding area. And the cooperative agreement speaks to several issues. One, how do we master plan the effort? Two, how do we actually manage and provide oversight of the effort? And three, how are we going to fund the effort? The master plan effort really needs to look at two parcels to really understand what improvements need to be made and how we make sure that people can come to this area and enjoy the opportunities that exist and better understand the history and the layers of history that have occurred there. So we have the City of San Antonio's property, which is the Alamo Plaza, and then the State of Texas property, which is the actual Alamo complex itself. So the master plan will help identify improvements that are necessary to make sure that those areas are preserved and protected and honored and interpreted. But it will also look at a larger 37-acre area that will look at the Alamo complex and the Alamo Plaza, but also look at the land uses around it and let us know what improvements need to be made to the streets and infrastructure. How do we better provide wayfinding opportunities from the interstate and from other areas and other amenities in the downtown? And then also, how do we make sure that we honor this area and make sure people know that they're in a sacred area when they come into the Alamo Plaza area? So the master plan will help us understand how to interpret it, what type of land uses are compatible with the surrounding area, and how to make sure that it can accommodate the different types of users, both pedestrians and vehicles, as well as tourists, employees, and residents. The master plan effort and the basis of the cooperative agreement are in line with the vision and guiding principles that were created by the Citizen Advisory Committee that was appointed by the mayor and council about a year ago. And that vision really talks about making sure that we engage local residents and visitors and make sure they are personally connected to the Alamo experience. It's not just about the Battle of 1836. It's about the establishment of San Antonio and then the later urbanization of our community. So we want to make sure that they understand that story and they're able to feel connected to it. We want to tell the story of the battle and its impact on the Republic of Texas because the battle is what brings people to the Alamo. But once they get there, we want to make sure they understand the rich history that exists on that site. We want to make sure that we interpret the diverse cultures in a meaningful and memorable experience and provide an in-depth tribute to all of those who lived, fought, and died at the Alamo. The guiding principles that will guide the framework and the actual oversight of the master plan will represent that the 1836 battle really is the portal to be able to tell the story of the entire Alamo. But I'll also make sure that unified leadership exists to make sure that we can make sure the master plan is implemented and it is in line with what the community wants to see. And that is why this cooperative agreement is so important, because for the first time we have the GLO and the Alamo Endowment Board and the city working together. We do have the unified leadership in place. It'll make sure that we preserve and protect and interpret the area based on historical and archaeological evidence. It'll embrace the physical accessibility and provide balance to make sure that we balance the folklore, the myth, and the actual history as people come to the Alamo to visit and understand what has happened at that historic site. We want to make sure that we create a premier visitor experience and most of all embrace the continuum of history from the establishment of our community to the urbanization of the city, and then enhance connectivity and wayfinding of the area. So these are really important guiding principles and the vision which will help us make sure that the community is engaged in this effort and that all parties are working towards something that the community will embrace. The funding and the timeline for the effort, the master plan will be complete in summer of 2016. The GLO and the Alamo Endowment will fund the master plan, but there's other funding that the city and the state have appropriated. There's approximately $48 million, of which $17 million was provided in the fiscal year 2016 capital budget, provides funding over a 2-year period. Also, there's $1 million from the 2012 bond program, and then we have private fundraising opportunities with the Alamo Endowment and the 2017 bond program. You know, originally we did this MOU with the city and the GLO, and it's talked about doing an interlocal agreement. And the interlocal agreement would have been between the city and the General Land Office. But after so many efforts and events have occurred, we realized that we need to go into a cooperative agreement with our private funding partner, which is the Alamo Endowment. We had the actual UNESCO World Heritage Designation that's happened this past summer. We had the allocation of funding from the state, which was $31.5 million, and the $17 million from the city. The Alamo is now under the control of the GLO. And then we have a new funding partner, which is the Alamo Endowment, and they are really committed to making sure they secure the funding necessary to make this a world-class visitor experience. So it makes sense that we go forward with this world-class cooperative agreement. And that cooperative agreement includes a management structure that will speak to how the master plan has oversight. The first tier of that management structure is the executive committee, and that'll include the mayor and the commissioner. Commissioner Bush and Mayor Taylor will have final determination of what's included in the master plan. And then there's a second tier, which is the management committee that provides the day-to-day operation of the master plan, which includes 2 from the Endowment Board, 2 from the General Land Office, and 2 from the City of San Antonio. And then we have 2 other committees that will provide policy support, and the policy makers include Senator Menendez, Representative Diego Bernal, Bexar County Judge Wolf, and then an appointee from the General Land Office and the City Manager's Office. And then we have the most important component, which is the Citizen Advisory Committee, and they will make sure that the master plan is in line with the vision and guiding principles that we have all embraced. And that advisory committee includes the 21 members that the mayor and council appointed to oversee the master plan process, plus an additional 5 from the General Land Office. So we feel that this is a great recipe to make sure that the vision and guiding principles are implemented. It's a best practice that could be followed as other World Heritage sites and important historical sites are master planned, and it couldn't be possible without the great partnership that we have with the Alamo Endowment and the General Land Office. I would like to ask Becky Denon to join me at the podium. She would like to read a letter from Commissioner Bush since he cannot be here.
Thank you so much, Lori. Thank you, Mayor Taylor, City Council. It's just such a pleasure to be here today on a historic day. And I do let you know that the commissioner is sorry he couldn't be here, but wanted me to read a letter that each of you have before you this morning. Today, we witness a new dawn in history. I know you share my feelings when I tell you that it is a great honor each day to serve and represent Texas' most beloved site, the cradle of Texas liberty, the Alamo. Almost 3 centuries ago, this unique mission first established a great American city. Then this mission became a military outpost and a place of learning, health, and safety. Following this critical time was the turning point when in 1836, Texian and Tejano heroes sacrificed their lives at the Alamo, stirred the hearts of a new nation to pledge to remember the Alamo as independence was won for Texas. Now, as we head into 2016, a new chapter of history is being written for the Alamo, and it is one rooted in collaboration and historical appreciation. I hear from Texans every day about how they are energized by the relationship that has developed among San Antonio and state leaders and with a community that surrounds, supports, and loves the Alamo. Many have admitted it's about time. The members of the committee and advisory groups that are coming together under this Alamo Cooperative Agreement have demonstrated a steadfast and selfless dedication to preserving the shrine of Texas liberty. They are bringing ideas to the table, expanding our vision and the horizon of what's possible. Today we stand on the shoulders of the heroes of the Alamo, and they deserve a site of remembrance worthy of their sacrifice. Thank you for your steadfast leadership in this effort and for walking with the Texas General Land Office, shoulder to shoulder, as we take on this challenge. This is a proud day for San Antonio residents, all Texans, and for all who remember the Alamo. May God bless the Alamo, and may God bless the great state of Texas. Sincerely, George P. Bush, Commissioner, Texas General Land Office. I especially want to say thank you specifically to Gene Powell and Lori for their hard work on this. This has been a long process, and really feel very honored to be a part of it, and are excited to move forward. Thank you, Lori.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Lori. We have a couple of citizens that asked to speak on this item. I'll call them at this time. Lance Aaron. Lance Aaron. Okay. Did you have a presentation? Okay, can someone come forward and help him? We may need some time to load it up, so why don't I call the next speaker first? Okay, that'd be great. And we'll allow that to happen? Yes, PowerPoint. Okay, Two Bears. Okay, well, we needed the presentation. Can you go? Mr. Two Bears, can you speak? Thank you.
This is my statement, Fidel Castillo, as far as mission Indian of the Attila clan of the Wawetecan Nation, and what I've said to you, and will now take as to my statement to the President Barack Hussein Obama, members of the United States Congress, Governor Greg Abbott, members of the Texas Legislature, County Judge Nelson Wolf, Bear County Commissioner, Mayor Ivy Taylor, and members of the City Council. I come before you as a spiritual leader of a small tribe of American Indians on the cusp of extinction. At the same time, I am present to represent the millions of Native Americans who have suffered and continue to suffer what can only be called an attempted genocide. That attempt includes an act of slavery, savagery against Native Americans, forced conversion of Christianity, enslavement, and other atrocities and violations of human rights. I'm not here to dwell on that history. The Catholic Church is in the process of acknowledging the wrongs committed by the Church and seeking forgiveness and the reconciliation with those wrongs. My prayer is that someday soon the Church will reach out to the Native Americans who played such a key role in the establishment of the missions and those burial grounds around the mission to deserve the respect the city didn't show, or now the state of Texas that will take to the President as to the violation of the pledge. My prayer is that the state of Texas one day acknowledge the role that Native Americans played in their fight for Texas independence, particularly in the Battle of Medina, where the Native Americans fought and died with the McGee expedition, now being taught to our children on the work the natives have done to have this done at the Texas State Board of Education, but not acknowledged by this council. My prayer is also that there will be a spiritual awakening among those in political office who cannot act to acknowledge the truth of this past as one step in healing the wounds of the past. The specific actions that can be taken at this time as part of the World Heritage Designation is to acknowledge the historical role of Native Americans, acknowledging the sanctity and the sacredness of the Native American burial grounds, and to tell the whole story of Mission San Antonio. I am here to object to the failure to acknowledge the complete history as part of the true story that should be told about Mission San Antonio as part of the World Heritage Designation. To begin the history that the Battle of the Alamo is to begin a book in the middle and disrespect the ancestors who lived to intertwine with the history of Mission San Antonio and those remaining that are threatened with desecration. You have all the power and have done, and I fast I am initiating to bring the truth to light as part of my dedication, my life to that task, that our children will know who we are today.
Thank
God
you.
bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, do we have the presentation loaded? Okay, Mr. Aaron. Would you please start, Mr. Aaron?
Honorable Mayor, City Council, City Manager, good morning, buenos dias. I have just a short presentation called Remember the Alamo, Don't Forget Mission San Antonio. I have 3 areas of major concern: an inaccurate boundary map of the Mission Alamo historic resources, exclusion of key Mission San Antonio Alamo features and historic resources on city property outside of the shrine, and some built-in conflicts of interest in weighting the committee toward the Alamo Anglo Defender story that I believe should be addressed. First, I have a little map up here for people. Up in the center there, you can maybe see that was the Alamo facilities in 1864 by Captain Menchaca. That's probably the best 18th century map. You see on the right side a 2-story building. This is 1764, excuse me, 1764. This 2-story building were the religious facilities of the mission. Those facilities were located on the eastern edge of La Vita and Hemisphere. That 2-story building was probably the tallest building in the entire state of Texas. Next to that building is a Campo Santo, a burial ground. So, first of all, drawing the map and only including the Alamo Historic District leaves out some of the most important historic resources of the mission itself, including only the Alamo Historic District fails to safeguard and interpret major Alamo historic resources vital for an inclusive pre-1836 interpretation of the mission. All remaining physical, archaeological, historic resources of the Alamo should have been included. Otherwise, it appears this process once again is biased toward the Alamo Fort and Anglo Defenders and shortchanges the world heritage story of those who founded San Antonio nearly 300 years ago. 2, exclusion of key Mission San Antonio Alamo features and historic resources on city property outside the shrine. City management failed, and I parenthesize, with negligence, to include and safeguard key Alamo Mission San Antonio historic and anthropological resources on city property. These include Campo Santos and funeral pyre sites. Here's one of the funeral pyre sites on Commerce Street. That's outside of the district. This should be a major feature for any redevelopment, and the master planner should take these things into consideration. The Campo Santo in La Vita in 1994, 2 Native American remains were disinterred and removed from La Vita. That is demonstrative of that Campo Santo. The Acequia Madre remnants in Hemisphere Park, what has been done is not authentic. This is Native Americans that creating that acequia.
Mr. Aaron, if you would
here's a major feature of the acequia.
Comments, your time is up, so if you conclude your comments, please.
Okay. And within Hemisphere Park on the right-hand side are tire tracks. That's the redevelopment. That's the most authentic feature. That may be the oldest historic feature being uncovered here by UTSA's archaeologists and the entire downtown core. The oldest, the most authentic feature of the Alamo in the downtown core. And what we have are tire tracks through the middle.
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up, Mr. Aaron. Thank you. Okay. Okay, we'll ensure you get your property back. Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone, for your, you can see the passion on this topic. I'd like to extend my thanks again to Lori, to the representatives that are here from the General Land Office, the representatives from the Alamo and the Alamo Endowment. Of course, it's, you know, it is an extreme privilege to serve the community here on the council, but I'm sure my colleagues would agree with me in saying that it's not often, you know, in the years of service that we've been up here, Councilman Lopez and I have been up here for a little more than a minute, and to have the opportunity to work on a project of this magnitude and scope that will have such an impact, not just on San Antonio, but our state and our nation. It just really, I can't even think of the right adjective to describe just how special that is. So we're just so excited about the partnership with the General Land Office and with the esteemed community members that are participating in this project through the Endowment Board. So having said that, I will go ahead and yield the floor to Councilman Trevino.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, certainly it's the most important project we're going to work on in our lifetime. At this moment, I would like to, well, first I want to thank Lori for that presentation and all her hard work on this project. I'd like to thank the staff for all they've done. At this point, I'd like to welcome Mr. Gene Powell of the Alamo Endowment to say a few words, if he could. I think it's important to understand from the Alamo Endowment some of the great things that we can expect from this new partnership. Mr. Powell.
Good morning. Thank you, Councilman Trevino. Thank you, Mayor. Council members, Manager Scully, Lori. The Endowment Board wants to thank all of you all for the opportunity to work with you and with the General Land Office on this very important project. We have 7 members today. We will be adding 2 members in December. And of course, we have to thank the Commissioner for putting the board together. The board came together in March of this year, and it's somewhat unbelievable how much work has been done since that day that we all assembled for the first time. And I would say that we're a year ahead of where we thought we would be. We will have some more of the board members with us this evening at 5 o'clock at the Alamo for a signing ceremony and a reception. We hope all of you all will be able to join us. We as board members will be responsible for raising the money to put this project forward, and we will also be taking a key role with the city and with the GLO in the design work that will be needed to put forward a world-class plan. And when we all began to think about this many, many years ago, we thought about the Alamo and we thought about 1836. As we've been educated and as our horizons have been broadened as a community, we've looked back and said this is really about the settling of Texas and the settling of San Antonio, and that goes from the Blue Hole to the weir in the river just above the Whitty that leads the Acequia off to the Alamo, to the 4 other missions, all the way to Rancho Las Cabras, south of town where the mission's grain and corn was grown. We have a huge story that was just endorsed by the World Heritage designation, and we've now, as a board, expanded our thought process to include that entire story. We are certainly focused on the Alamo. We are focused on the original Alamo in 1718 at the headwaters of the San Pedro Creek. We are, of course, focused on the 1836 battle, which is so important to Texas and American history. But we are also focused on the bigger and broader story that tells the story of Texas and of the United States and how we continue today, and I've heard it from Councilman Cryer this morning. Councilman Trevino and I grew up 16 miles apart in South Texas. We have different socioeconomic backgrounds and cultural backgrounds and political backgrounds, but in this community, we all work together to make these things work. And we as a board are committed to you as a council and to the city of San Antonio and to the state of Texas to have no small thoughts, make no small plans. I have with me today Lou Mormon, who's a member of the board, Lou and Ramona Bass from Dallas and Red McCombs from here. And Lou especially has said over and over, we have to think bigger and broader. We have to think more expansively. So if you saw my quotes in the paper this morning, we've talked to John now at the Texas Historical Commission. We've talked to our cohorts at other great historic sites across America. We're looking at Gettysburg. We're looking at Jamestown, at Williamsburg. We're looking at Philadelphia and Liberty Hall and the Liberty Bell. We're looking at Boston and the Liberty Trail. So we will be looking at all of these places to gather the best, the brightest, and the greatest ideas and bring them to San Antonio in a plan that we hope we can deliver approximately a year from today. So I'm glad to answer any questions, but I want to thank you for starting this process. This is just the beginning. There's a lot of work to be done. I can tell you this board is absolutely up to the task and can't thank you enough for the opportunity to work with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you for your commitment. I would also like to thank a few other people that may have not been mentioned. Mr. Mark Havens, the General Land Office, Brittany Cheatham as well, and Miss Amelia White, who's with the Alamo. Thank you so much for being here. Before anything else, I would simply like to motion to approve this item, this historic item. The passage of this motion will be one of the most important votes that this council will ever take. Today, all the stars of Texas have aligned themselves over San Antonio, over our World Heritage Site, and especially over the Alamo. We begin a journey that will result in a final triumph at the Alamo, the one that properly honors its history and all its people. Our beloved Alamo and all its surroundings will be transformed. We will tell the stories of all the people living in San Antonio and at the Alamo in the 1800s. To carry through with the master plan and all that will provide, we'll take all our collective minds, all our collective hearts, and all our collective energy working together. As Gene mentioned, we will make no small plans. Today we celebrate just a little because we are on our way. Tomorrow we will begin the great work. I'm happy to be a part of this. I feel it's a real privilege, a real honor, and I hope to get a unanimous vote over this resolution. Thank you to the General Land Office, to George P. Bush, to the Alamo Endowment, Gene Powell, Lou Mormon for being here. I see that Hope Andrade is here as well. Thank you so much for being here. This is a historic day, and I'm thrilled to see this vote on council. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Councilman Cryer.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, Becky, I hope you will share with Commissioner Bush how grateful we all are for his leadership. I recall that a few days after he was elected land commissioner, he was down here at City Hall visiting with us and committing to me and committing particularly to then City Councilman Diego Bernal, who at the time was leading the effort for City Council, his support for this project. So he was an early and major supporter, and I'm grateful to him for that. Secondly, Gene, I'm sorry we got you seated, but if you could wander your way up to the microphone, I did have a couple of things I wanted to say to you and ask you. And what I wanted to say to you is there hasn't been an opportunity to do this at this council, but I wanted to give you a profound and public thanks for your leadership of the UT System Board of Regents. During your tour of duty, we had unprecedented authorization of buildings and academic programs for UTSA and the UT Health Science Center. And I've been around the UT system long enough to know that those things don't happen unless you've got a regent who has a vision for his own community in addition to a vision for the state of Texas. And secondly, I am thankful to you for your commitment to openness and transparency within the UT system and its administrative levels. Those were some tough times, and I'm grateful for the positions that you took. So thank you. But secondly, on this project, do you all have a feel yet, Gene, for the order of magnitude of fundraising that you are likely to have to do to raise private monies to supplement what the governmental entities are doing?
Councilman, first, thank you for your very kind comments. Joe talked earlier about Congressman Doggett and his leadership, but Joe was my president as a senior at the University of Texas, and he moved things forward for the students on the campus. I remember that he was always, every time I saw him, he was in a coat and tie, moving about the campus as he is still doing today. We're all moving a little slower, Joe, but thank you for your leadership back to the early, mid-'60s. Thank you for that. And the order of magnitude, I was in Dallas a couple of weeks ago meeting with some people who've participated in projects of this size, and they told me that do not be surprised if your total planning cost ends up being in the $10 million range. And they said don't be surprised if what you need to raise comes in between $100 and $300 million to do this project right. So we can't put a number on it until we see what the planners, Lou and I would tell you that we're not experts in this area. I've hired a lot of planners in my life and a lot of engineers, and I've supervised a lot of them, but I've never done a project like this. We're going to bring the very best people in to tell us what the scope of this work needs to be and then what the work actually is. At that point, we will have a better idea of what we have to raise. But the board is committed to whatever that number is, raising that number. So there's not a number that scares us. We think from the Alamo and with the World Heritage Designation, our fundraising opportunities are worldwide. And we've gotten, we're getting emails and text messages and notes and phone calls from across the country wanting to help us. And John now has said the Texas Historical Commission will do everything in their power to help us. So I think we're going to find a lot of support, but it's going to be a lot of money.
Well, I know that if anybody can get it done and get it done right, you can, and if anybody can raise the amount of money needed to do it, you can, because you've done that for a host of projects for a number of years. So thank you for that very much. And I see our good friend Hope Andrade in the audience, and I assume she has something to do with your board as well.
Well, we haven't made the official announcement, but we have 2 new board members that the commissioner has secured commitments from, and the board will vote in December. But we have both Secretary Hope Andrade and former Chancellor Francisco Figueroa, both on track to join us in December.
You could not pick 2 better people, and via Chairman Andrade, we're honored to have you here as well. Lastly, Gene, you should know that Councilman Trevino and I this afternoon are going out to see David Strauss. And David Strauss, D-Day veteran, lifelong Marine, was one of the people who was involved in a study that was done on Alamo Plaza 30 or 40 years ago, and he has been kind enough to have Diego and I out to his house to lay that out. And when Councilman Trevino got elected, one of the first calls I got, Councilman, was from David Strauss saying, would you bring the new guy out here? I'd like to meet him. So there are a lot of people that have been interested in what you're doing for a very long time, and you're going to have support from all over this community for what you're doing. Thank you, Gene.
Well, Councilman, the final thing I would say about that is we want everybody's input, no matter how small. We've asked Brittany, Jim, to keep a log of all the people that call in offering help. We want information input from everybody in the community, from the council, and from everybody across the United States as to what we should be doing. So if David wants to give input or wants us to come out and visit, we'd be glad to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Nierenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to add my voice as saying, as someone else so excited about casting a vote in favor of this in time of council. The Battle of Alamo was, 1836. It seems like the other Battle of the Alamo that's been occurring has been over the last 180 years, territorial between many different jurisdictions, and I'm glad that today will mark a significant day where we can put all that to rest and really work together to create a new vision for what is the most significant historical site, if not in Texas, but in the United States, outside of Boston maybe. Thank you also to everybody who's worked on this, Mayor, former Councilman Bernal, Land Commissioner Bush, and I happen to think that, things don't just happen, they happen for reasons oftentimes, and I can't think of a better person. Councilman Trevino, you mentioned that the stars align, but the Alamo is in District 1, and we hear from folks who have concerns about whether or not we're telling an accurate story, whether we're being true to really the culture and the historical accuracy of the facade. Everything about the Alamo is important to preserve in terms of the totality of what happened there. And, it just so happened that last year, a friend had applied for a vacancy on this council, happened to be Councilman Trevino, who has an architecture background. He is one of the most passionate people I know about history. He has corrected us on courses that we may have gone down a little bit wrong already, and so I can't think of a better person for this city to stand behind as a District 1 councilman on this issue than Councilman Trevino. So I want to applaud all your work. It's not been easy bringing together a lot of divides that we've had over these issues, but I have full confidence in you and the mayor and the work that you all are doing to get us to a new phase of the Alamo. So I'm excited to cast a vote in favor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Viagran.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much, Lori, and to everyone who's here, who have been a part of this process. I am a proud daughter of a Texas history and a Tejano hero, Toribio Lozoya. So as we move forward with this is a great time here, telling the story, telling the entire story. And Chairman Powell, I very do appreciate the remarks that you gave about making sure that it includes our entire story of our mission and our World Heritage sites. And you're taking all of the community input as well. And that is something that I know that everyone wants to hear and understand. And I'm very, I have faith in that as we move forward together. Secretary Andrade, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for all of the work that the board has done thus far and will continue to move forward. Becky, it's great to see you here in the position that you're working on with the GLO and with the Alamo. I do think that all of the coordination, all the collaboration, what we do well in San Antonio is bring different people to the table and try to work for the best for our city and telling our story. And I think that's where we're moving forward right now. I did want to just also say thank you, Lori, for sharing this information with us and also telling the story of how many different iterations we've been in this whole journey as we move forward with our Alamo, how we first started with years ago. And I want to also thank my appointee to the Community Advisory Board, who was a part of it, and all of our advisory board members who took the time, who reviewed, who were part of the conversation and brought us to this point as well. And I would also like to ask the mayor and Commissioner Bush, who are going to have a great responsibility and a very daunting task as we move forward. But I know that you two are going to be a great partner working together with all of these contributors and collaborators. So as we would say, adelante, let's move forward with this. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor, and I want to add my congratulations to the committee and the hard work that's happened up until this point, and also underscore, as my colleagues have, that the work is just about to start. We're on a great path forward. We talk about the story that's going to be told there, and we know it's simply just by the few folks that came to speak today that the story is a complex one. It's a very good statement to be making, is that we identify the entry point, 1836, that is the entry point for that story. It certainly isn't the beginning or the end of any of the history of Texas. It certainly is a story that has a continuum, of which one of those points is 1836. It reminds me, a few years ago I had the chance to travel to Japan, and I was in Tokyo, and I was drawn to the Japanese War Memorial, specifically because I wanted to see and read and try to understand their perspective of December the 7th, 1941. That's what drew me there. Now, what I learned was that it was a much more complicated, complex world environment that led to a lot of things that happened prior to that date, and certainly things that have happened since that date. But it is a story that certainly is intriguing. It drew me there for no other reason that I just wanted to find out how it was going to be couched. Well, I think the same thing can certainly apply here with the entry point, the focal point, the, if you will, the portal that we enter this definition of San Antonio's history and the embodiment of what we are today, and that's the entry point of the Battle of the Alamo, where we went from there and how we got to that point. I think people will be from around the world very interested in hearing that story. Indeed, those folks that are world scholars and historians from World Heritage and things of that nature have had a chance to look at that story critically and to define it as one of those places that a story like that needs to be told. It is now our duty, more than pleasure, because it won't be an easy thing to fulfill, is to tell that story accurately with as much a broad-based perspective as possible, to try to help people understand what the complexities of our civilization have been all about, while in the world stage, our civilization is probably not as storied as others, because we haven't been here as long, perhaps with a historical perspective, but we do have a very comprehensive one to tell. That's going to be up to the 4 different committees at the 4 different levels to define, to move forward, and ultimately tell that very complex story in a very concise way. Big challenge. We start today. Thank you very much for all the work that you're doing, and in advance for all the great work that you'll do in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Hey, thank you. Councilman Warwick.
Thank you, Mayor. And as my friend Councilman Saldana would probably say to Councilman Cryer right now, we have not seen this movie before. This is truly a momentous occasion, something that is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I'm just so glad to play whatever small role that I can in it. I'm definitely glad to see all of the partners that we have here and know that we have capable hands with the council, the mayor, the general land office, and the partners with the Alamo and the state in really moving this project forward in a productive, holistic way. And I think the holistic nature of this will shape the future of Texas, shape the future of how Texans view our city and how the world views our city. And I just look forward to all the new opportunities that will arise from this, because this will also bring new opportunities to our downtown and to the people of San Antonio. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. I'll just reiterate again the historic nature of this day and appreciate everyone that's played a role, in particular Councilman Trevino, who's worked really hard on this, and we know that Gene Powell has been a leader on many community projects, and so we know this project is in good hands with him, and we're all ready to continue the work on this and can't wait to see the final product. So we have a motion and a second for approval on item 14. Please vote. Okay, motion carries. All right, we had a little bit of a glitch, and so we'll need to reconsider the consent agenda to substitute item 13 for individual consideration, and item 18 will stay on consent. So do we have a motion?
Mayor, I make a motion to make the correction to items pulled from today's agenda. I move to reconsider the consent agenda.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for consideration. Please vote. Motion carries. Okay, now I'll entertain a motion to re-vote on the consent agenda. Okay. Yes. Okay, we have a motion. Was there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the adoption of the consent agenda. Please vote. Motion carries. We'll move on to item number 7.
Good evening. Welcome to the Alamo. Thank you all for being here for what is an historic event. I'm Becky Denon, Director of the Alamo. Before we begin, I want to be sure to recognize some individuals who are here who are not going to be a part of the signing, but who have played a very important role in today's events. I want to point out, first of all, the board members for the Alamo Endowment. Thank you for coming. We have with us Hope Andrade, Welcome Wilson, Jean Powell, Red McCombs, and Ramona Bath. Thank you. We also had word that we would have Congressman Lloyd Doggett here with us. Also want to recognize members of the advisory group, the Citizens Advisory Group that will play a role in helping us with the master plan. Those who are here, I believe, Rick Galindo, Davis Phillips, Betty Boucher, Ramon Vasquez, Bill Brindle, Sue Ann Pemberton, Sharon Skrobarsek, Anthony Edwards, Boone Powell. Those are our Citizen Advisory area. Thank you all for coming. From City of San Antonio, Sarah Esserlew, Shannon Miller, Ed Guzman, if you're here, thank you. I know you've put a lot of work and effort into this. Also want to recognize City Councilman Roberto Trevino and Rebecca Villagran. Thank you for your support. Want to recognize Mayor Howard Peak. Thank you, sir, for all you've done. Also looking forward to a lot of great work together on World Heritage. That's Susan Shandoa. She is with Los Compadres. And then Suzanne Scott with the River Authority. Okay. We stand here today in front of one of the most revered landmarks, not just in San Antonio, not just in Texas, but in the world. Thanks to the dedication and support of the political and business leaders you will hear from next, we will now work together to create a space worthy of the reverence that it deserves. First, we'll hear from Mayor Ivy Taylor. She's been serving our city for more than 6 years, first as District 2 City Councilwoman, now as mayor following her election in June. She has her master's degree in city and regional planning and is a champion for the citizens of San Antonio on a host of issues during her tenure here. Now we are fortunate because she is a champion also of the Alamo and the other historic missions in San Antonio. Please welcome Mayor Ivy Taylor.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Well, as you know, the City of San Antonio has been working with our community partners to bring the Alamo Complex and the San Antonio missions to the forefront to help ensure that our preservation and enhancement of this irreplaceable site is respectful of its important history. Now, a few months ago, I was in Germany with some of you for the World Heritage Designation announcement, and I will tell you it was a thrilling moment. The designation of our Alamo and the Spanish colonial missions as a UNESCO World Heritage Site was a validation of both our deep pride in our heritage and our most ambitious aspirations for our community. It was truly a great victory for all of us, for the city, for the state of Texas, and the United States, as we're now one of only 23 designated sites in the entire U.S. The designation was the culmination of many years of hard work by many people, from those who preserved the Alamo and the missions in the 19th and 20th century, to those who worked on the application process, to those who traveled to Germany to hear the announcement in July. Now that was a great day, but this is also a great day. This partnership opens the door to creating the very best design and plan, and it means that we will have the ability to build what we envision. We want the experience of visiting the Alamo to be on par with other renowned historic landmarks and battlefields in our country, including Gettysburg, Valley Forge, Williamsburg, the Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, and Jamestown. Commissioner Bush and I are committed to a process that incorporates ideas from throughout the community and from experts across the country, and is not just appropriate, but rather sets a standard for excellence. And together, we'll redevelop this most beloved landmark so that visitors see a complete historic interpretation of the Alamo and our rich and layered history. And so I would like to thank all the members of the City Council for their support of our actions today. I'd like to give special thanks to Councilwoman Villagran, who's been dedicated to the missions and the Alamo and helped champion that World Heritage designation. So thank you very much, Rebecca. Now I'll ask Jean and Cheryl and Ann and Councilman to stand as we sign the official agreement to make this official. All right.
And with the stroke of a pen, ladies and gentlemen, we have a brand new beginning. I'd like to invite Jean Powell.
How do you follow that? Thank you, everyone, for being here today. And in the audience and at the table and around the back of the group here, I see numerous people who have for many, many years worked so hard to bring us to this beginning. And I want to thank all of you, from being a citizen of the state of Texas and a citizen of South Texas and San Antonio. Thank you to every one of you for what you've done to preserve this place, the missions, the history of San Antonio. It's now our job to take this forward for the next several years and really turn this mission, the iconic Alamo and the Battle of 1836 that makes it so special, into a part of that World Heritage designation that we were all so proud of a few months ago. And the board of the Alamo Endowment has come together since March of this year, and I'm here representing them and my fellow board members that are here in the audience and were introduced earlier. They all have a commitment to doing the very best job in replanting this place, while at the same time honoring those who fell here on behalf of all of us. And I will commit to you as chairman of the Alamo, Remember the Alamo Foundation, that we will do a great job. We will find the right people. We will find the right professionals. We will take the time, but at the same time, move this process along and not let it dally. And we will do something here that all of us can be proud of. And whenever I falter just a little bit, I have something to push me along, and that's my good friend Red McCombs, who won't let things sit idle for very long. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to the City Council for pulling this together. Thank you to the mayor, who has had to leave. Thank you to Cheryl and her staff, and to Lori, and to the councilman and Councilman Trevino. Thank you so much. As a fellow native of South Texas, some of you all might have heard this morning that when the councilman and I first started visiting, we realized that we grew up 16 miles from each other in the Rio Grande Valley and have that special bond of those people that have grown up and lived on the river. So thank you, Councilman, for seeing this as something so special, stepping into that breach and working so hard to put together this group. And the coordinated group of the GLO, the Alamo Endowment and the City of San Antonio are going to do something special that's not been done in the last 100 years. And as you watch the process, we will do everything within our power to make you very proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. I'm very grateful for your commitment and all that you've done to the state, and we know you're going to do something great along with the endowment, along with the GLO, and in partnership with the city. We're very excited, and as Gene mentioned, we did grow up about 16 miles from one another. Many of you know me as your councilman for District 1. I'm an architect by trade, but I'm an avid historian. But most people don't realize I also went to Davy Crockett Elementary, so I think it's kind of neat that I'm standing up here right now. So I have a deep, deep appreciation for this place and the part it played in the growth of San Antonio. Although it is most famous for the Great Battle in 1836, the history dates back to the early 18th century as a mission when San Antonio was first established. We have a great responsibility to tell the story of the Alamo in its greater context so that visitors can truly appreciate not just the battle, but its connection to the river and to the other missions. And now, because of this agreement between the city, the state, and the Alamo Endowment to embark on this new master plan together, we are essentially removing all the limits we were facing geographically and financially. The pieces are now in place to ensure that the Alamo is preserved and celebrated the right way for generations to come. Before I turn over the microphone, State Representative Bernal couldn't be here today. Many of you know he got married over the weekend, and he is on his honeymoon, so we want to wish him well, and we wish he was here. But he did ask me to extend his appreciation to all those working on this successful partnership. Now I'd like to ask Ms. Ann Itzel, the Chief Clerk of the Texas General Land Office, to say a few words. Thank you very much. Ann?
Thank you very much, Councilman Trevino. Thank you all very much. It is an absolute honor to be here, and it is a great day for the city of San Antonio and for the state of Texas. Unfortunately, Commissioner Bush had a prior commitment and couldn't attend, but he has been and will continue to be very involved in the process and will continue to work closely with Mayor Taylor as the executive committee to determine the results of this new master plan. As Becky said, the Alamo is a treasure, not just for San Antonio, but to the entire state. Thanks to the efforts of Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and Speaker Strauss, the Texas legislature came together to commit a historic appropriation of $25 million to support the efforts to protect, preserve, and celebrate the Alamo. That, combined with the contributions from the city and the private fundraising of our endowment board, will enable us to build something truly great here that everyone will be proud of and will be able to enjoy. We are confident that the structure put in place through this agreement will create a fair process and one that will elicit the very best of results. We look forward to working together. Thank you all very much for your time, and I'd like to ask San Antonio City Manager Cheryl Scully to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Good afternoon. And Congressman Doggett, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate it very much. I want to say thank you to Mayor Taylor and to our council members who are here, to our city team, Lori Houston, Ed Guzman, Pat DiGiovanni with Central Partnership, all who have worked so hard on this project for so long, and to Gene Powell and the foundation members who are here this afternoon. This is a first, and we're looking forward to working with the Land Commissioner, George P. Bush, and his team and the endowment. I believe this is the first time the city and the state land department have really worked together on a project. Although, Gene, I have to say to you and Roberto, although I didn't grow up in South Texas, I have lived and worked downtown San Antonio for the past 10 years, just 5 blocks from this location. And I'm really excited to be working on this very important project over the next several years. Over the past 30 years, there have been many attempts at master plans for the Alamo, But none of those have come to fruition, and for the first time, we have an opportunity to really make something happen here, something very significant. We look forward to the development of the master plan over the next years. In 2012, our voter-approved bond program did include $1 million, and this year's adopted budget for our capital plans for 2016 and 2017 include an additional $17 million toward the Alamo area. And we know that the master plan will evolve over the next year and that there will be a request in perhaps a future bond program. Those dollars from the city, together with what the legislature has approved, the $31.5 million, will enable us to get started on this very important project. So on behalf of the city, we're looking forward to the work. There is so much happening downtown, development on the east and west ends of downtown, and we know that the master plan is about connectivity, how we make this a very special place for those who live in San Antonio, who live in South Texas, and across the nation, the millions of people who travel to see the Alamo. So on behalf of our city team, thank you for being here this afternoon, and thank you to the state for this partnership.